earlier. So I hope everyone received them. And today, what we're going to have is Keysight presenting a presentation around testing and maybe a short demo. So that's right here in our title. And we can go over the notes later after that. We might take about 30 minutes for that or more, depending on the number of questions. So any questions before we kick it off to Keysight? And I'm going to stop presenting. And you guys take it away, Chris and Mircea.
Okay, I'll start sharing my screen. So hello, everyone. So my name is Mircea Dan, and I'm presenting today on behalf of Keysight. And although I'm presenting, basically, this is a work of a whole team from our side. And I think we have today here Alberto, and I think we have also Vinod, and also Chris Summers. Now, this pull request that we are doing today, it's actually making the official transition from stage 1 of testing where everything was manual, GUI-based, to trying to standardize and automate the test cases, although we are still using proprietary ways of configuring the device under test. And actually the configuration, it's done manually, and we will talk about that. The pull request is right here, and it has three big components of it: the testbed hardware part, the environment setup, and we are also contributing the best case scenario test case that will show the max performance that the device can obtain. Now, if we go over the files, all of the files that were contributed are under dash test folder. And like I said, we have in docs, we have the testbed section. We have a quick overview, just describes the testbed. And then we go into the physical topology, where we have the dash appliance, but this can be any server, off-the-shelf server, where we plug 2 or more cards. I put on the diagram here a grayed out multiple slots and possible multiple appliances, as this will evolve further when we'll talk about high availability and other features that are under discussion in the community. So I kept them here just to show the future, but they are grayed out, not in use. And we have the test equipment, where we can do both stateless, like UDP traffic, and full stateful I would say application traffic, where we have HTTP, FTTP, and we can measure the CPS, the connections per second. And we also have a server. Now, this server here, it either can be also this same server that hosts the NICs, can be used also to have the software on it. As well, this could be a VM. It's not mandatory to be a physical server. So kind of these are the components that are making the testbed. And it's listing here the components, and as well is listing some recommended performance, I would say, for the server in order to be able to handle all the VMs and containers we need to start to realize the test case. So this is a physical topology. If we go back, we have the setup environment, which just talks about installing Ubuntu Linux on the server. It's not necessarily to be Ubuntu. I try personally like CentOS and Arch Linux. Any will work, but the example here is Ubuntu. It talks about what prerequisites to install. Installing Docker, this is just a snippet from actual Docker website of what needs to be installed for Ubuntu. Installing KVM for the VM. I know this may be frowned upon, but if anybody wants to enable root on Ubuntu, can do it as well. Networking setup, just setting up a bridge for all the VMs to have networking access. And once we have all these prerequisites done, we can start cloning the Dash repository. All the rest of the environment we have, and I'll show it next, in a container. So you don't have to keep doing manual steps, just build the container that is provided here on this path. and all the requirements for the test cases and the environment will be pulled in the container. After that, we need to download the necessarily VMs from our side, basically the IX network and the IX load applications for stateless and stateful traffic, and just start the VMs and have them auto start in case the server reboots. The VMs will always be up. So this is the configuration part. I will go a bit over the container part. I have here an environment that I set up. Inside, we have a Docker file definition and Python requirements for the test cases. And all we have to do is just to build the container, same commands that are given in the document in the how-to. Let me go back to docs. So we have the hardware testbed up, all cabled. We have the setup, the environment all up and set up. And now we need to do a bit of configuration to map the ports. Maybe you have port 2, maybe here you have port 6, 7. So we are providing a testbed file that defines the IP of the server, the management IP of the server, of the chassis, of the devices that we want to test, IPs of the VMs, which ports are connected. So what we see here in the diagram, we'll have in the testbed file here. Also, I separated any credentials in a credential file. And actually, I created as a template, and the actual file I added it to Git ignore so nobody makes like a mistake and contributes their credentials, and now they're out there in the world. So this is the configuration part that a user will have to do to get the test case going. Once the configuration is done, we can move directly into running the test cases. And for running the test cases, all we have to do is basically start the container. And after that, PyTest and just run one test case or all of them or whatever we want. If we want to simplify a bit, I can make a shell script which actually hides this long command, and all you have to do something like pytest dash or something. I can name that script, and then you just call the cases, and actually everything will run behind in the container without the user having to give all these long paths. So we can make improvements as we get feedback from you. Now, when we talk about the test cases, and let me move into the test cases. We are contributing initially a test case under the VNet to VNet categories. There are multiple categories as described in the other docs. And for the VNet to VNet, we are contributing the best case scenario. So this is the kind of the easiest case and is supposed to showcase the maximum performance that could be attained by the device. And this in addition with the test which will showcase the worst case scenario that will be contributed in a subsequent pull request, you will be able to get a range and be like, the device can perform between here and here. So in a live deployment, you can expect performance anywhere within this range. Kind of this is the goal of the test case. As test case topology goes, so we have the device under test with a very basic ACL rule where allows the traffic from the VM1 to the VM2 and from VM2 to VM1, and it denies everything else. It just have emulated one single VM with one single IP, one VNI, one VPC. The most basic thing, I would say what is not the most basic thing is the fact that we have bidirectional traffic, especially since UDP, I could make it unidirectional, but usually TCP, it's you send and you receive something back. So it's bidirectional traffic. So I believe the device under test will register this as two flows, not only one. So it could be simplified for, but I think two flows, it's the minimum to actually make sense. And with this in mind, while we're running the test case, you will get a final result, something like this, where let's say it will try 1 million packets per second. it will get no loss, no frames delta. It will try, let's say 4 million. These are an example because let's say we have a gentleman agreement that I'm not going to publish any numbers and anything that can be considered competitive intelligence. So these numbers are just fictive numbers. When you run on your device, you will get your own numbers basically. You will get, let's say 4 million, you'll see some loss, this is not good, we'll type 2 and 3 and you'll get a result in millions of packets per second. We can tweak it and go into 100Ks and so on. We can tweak the resolution, but usually if you want to know millions, it's good enough, I would say. And for CPS test, we'll have also a sample output. I guess I just put some fictive numbers very low. We'll have the amount of connections per second, the connection rate, and we'll see the HTTP transactions connections. And of course, we don't want any request fail. We don't want retransmits. So we have multiple stats that we are looking and considering when we are saying this is the max that could be achieved under this scenario. So these are the three big things that we are contributing today. Now, when we look at the test case itself as a script, the script is contributing everything. Let me go back to the test bed, actually, the docs. I think that picture will be better. Yes, so the testbed is the script is configuring everything for the traffic generator, but the device under test today is configured manual. Now we have created, sorry, let me go here. Under targets, and this will be the device, let's call it par number, or companies that contributes it, or maybe it's the SI implementation, or maybe the site drift, or maybe the gRPC implementation. So here we'll be able to add drivers which will configure the device. They can be proprietary or they can be open, but at different stages of the project, like we show here in different diagrams, we can have site drift to library. Maybe we have configuration to Redis, iRedis, and so on as we are moving forward to the final goal. So all those will be contributed in this folder, and the test it's passing the data set, and let me show that. So the data set with the IPs, the ACL rules, and everything that is needed will be passed also to the library which configures the device in order to configure it automatically. At this moment, at this phase where we are today, I am still doing this configuration, let's call it manually. And actually this ties into the kind of what's next. It will be nice if somebody can contribute anything in here that will allow their device to be configured, and we can actually maybe run a demo in the community, although I'll have to obfuscate the performance numbers. And I think this is all from what we are contributing. And I would say the next immediate step for this, so basically in what's next, will be to contribute the worst case scenario test case. So we'll see a subsequent PR in the following weeks, where here we'll have the worst case scenario or scenarios, because depending on, there are multiple axes where you can scale, and we'll contribute those. And I think this is all from my side. I think we can go to questions or some feedback.
I have a question. Thank you for
Yes.
presenting this. The configuration of the device, once once Dash will be done, will not be device specific anymore. Do I understand correctly? I mean, it's
yes, and this is why yes, it will not be device specific, but as we move through the phases, it can be configured at different levels which will require different, let's say, Python libraries or implementations to we can go directly do cycles and configure the device. Or maybe later there will be a gRPC library that will allow us to connect and send the commands. And this will be different, let's call it drivers, that can configure it in a dash way in the end, but at different stages. Also, having this flexibility doesn't mean it needs to be only dash, whatever it's in the community. Anybody could take it and put their own proprietary library. They don't need to contribute it here. They can have it on their own repository, hidden, whatever, and use that, take in the data from the test, and configure their device while the Dash API is being developed. So right now, the first demo that I made to showcase this was actually with a Sonic DUT. So I took a Sonic DUT, I configured some basic ACLs there, and I ran the test using a Sonic DUT. A next phase will be to take an actual device and use proprietary APIs that already exist, which are not yet Dash, and configure the device and run the test, which we are able to do that today, basically.
Yeah, so in the transition phase, ideally what vendors would need to do is to have some sort of script that takes your configuration file and translate it into the proper API calls for their device.
Yes.
Is that right?
Till something Dash becomes available.
Yes. And once Dash is available, we'll have a community endorsed script that will do that between your configuration file and Dash.
Yes, because ideally everything should be configured automatically from the test data.
Yeah, thanks.
So I have a general question. I think, in previous the high-level design document of the Sonic Dash testing, I think it says we need to leverage the Sonic management testbed to standardize the test environment. I don't see it's this doesn't seem to be aligned with the Sonic management testbed.
It's actually going in that direction. So basically, if we go here, the setup and everything for the testbed, let me go here to the document, and I can pull side by side testbed and setup environment, and I'm Sonic management, and we have docs, testbed, and I believe it is one of So if we look here, prepare testbed, you can actually compare these two files, do a diff, and they are as close as possible, even the networking, the bridge, as close as possible to the Sonic testbed. You can actually do a diff. I'm actually inviting you to do that. They're as close as possible to the other. Then when we move into environment, let me go show that. We have this container here that has the requirements. This container could be the Sonic management container. So if you take and you go to the steps here and you actually build the Docker Sonic management, this container, and we just need to make sure that if we go the Sonic management route, whatever requirements they have for Python that they import when they build the Sonic management, they are also the requirements that we have here. So we need kind of to do a merge, but this container could be as well the Sonic management container. So everything that I'm submitting today, it's in that direction. So testbed setup, I would say it's as identical as I could make it. And running the test from a container, it's exactly same philosophy as Sonic management has. And these containers as we, how to say, go towards that goal of running Sonic on the car and doing all this stuff, we can go that way. It's already, I would say,
I think what you're saying is move through
ideology,
the
it's in that
maturity
direction.
model.
Sorry?
I think what you're saying is as you move through the maturity model, the different stages where stage
Yes.
5 of the maturity model was to incorporate the sonic test bed.
Yes.
Then this is good, but isn't that, if we're going the direction, then, whatever changes you make, right? So for example, the container requirement, which we should be merging to that repo, right? So, we have a way to build that container. We need to incorporate that into that, because I think what I'm trying to say is that the Sonic the Sonic management test framework has been adopted widely, right? So many people are already familiar with that. How to set up the test bed? They just follow those instructions to set up the test bed. Then isn't that, if we're trying to align this, is Dash a special case for that test bed setup? In that, whatever changes we want to make, new, for example, you need to put new packages, then we can add to the existing Sonic management, right, steps. So we can incorporate that. So, people just follow one step and can choose what test bed they want to build. We have T0, T1, and then in this case, we can choose like STM appliance test bed. Then can build the, the same, the test that um, uh, for this project. And also, not just the test framework, right? So I think in the Sonic management also use Ansible to set up those all those basic environment. Whatever steps you have, it's actually in the Ansible playbook. So people don't have to run those steps manually. They can just run the playbook and then set up the servers and other things. The Docker, so all those deployed, and also the way that the Sonic management also manage the test, right? So all these tests, they use PyTest to manage those tests. I think
Yes.
the
Yes,
dash test can also be contributed to that folder, right? So I think
yes, so they are under PyTest and they have the same format. So I got your feedback. Like I said, they're in the same line. I can take all these contributions that I have here for the Docker container and requirements and see what is needed to be added to the Sonic management container, and I can make a pull request into Sonic management with these changes. But now, in order to move all the test cases from under Dash repository into Sonic management repository, it's possible, but I think this needs to be a Dash community decision. If community decides this way, I have no problem moving the files to here. Like I said, we already made it with these assumptions that we want to be Sonic management, yeah, because that was part of the vision. So the moment we decide to take this test folder from under Dash and moving under Sonic management, yeah, we'll transition. I would say that needs
I'll
to be a
take that
community
as
decision.
I'll take that as an action item. Thank you.
But in the meanwhile, I can make some pull request into Sonic management with any changes that I have in here.
Yeah, because I think my concern that if we want to align, right? So initially, if we start with totally different, because later it could diverge, right? So I mean, if we converge initially, contributing those things back to the Sonic management, then then we're on the same approach.
Okay, I understood. Like I said, I will try to make some pull request to add it in here. And like you have these topologies, basically you're suggesting to add the Dash topology.
One of the aspects that I have not understood in all this is,
yes,
did we make the decision that to be Dash compliant, we need to run Sonic. Because if we had made the decision, moving makes a lot of sense. If we have not made that decision, then, being standalone will make more sense.
The end goal is to run it on the NIC, but we need to be able to test in stages prior to, getting everyone's hooks into the cards and creating the programming for the cards.
No, Christine, but that is not the point. You're right, but that is not the point. The point is it a requirement for the DPU to run Sonic?
The slimmed down version. Yeah, the slimmed down version of Sonic. I believe we've had these conversations. Yeah.
Did we decide it in that direction?
No, I think we had the conversation, but I don't think we made a decision. I think
yeah, exactly. I was under the same impression. I think we had the discussion, but we let it open. And I'm not saying that I'm against. I'm just saying that we need clarity.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I can interject here. Can we wrap up the test, the PR kind of discussion before we go down that rabbit hole?
Yeah, let's do that.
Because that could be another whole meeting. If there's any other questions, Gohan, thanks for the input. I guess my comment I wanted to make was one of the things we want to do is make it easy enough for vendors to start testing their DPUs without having to go down the whole Sonic management learning curve also. So this is a good place to incubate this. And Merch is well aware of the Sonic management test bed since we contribute to it. We'll always be able to reconcile and merge in. We'll keep that in mind.
I disagree with that. I think under my mind, right? So, this Dash project is part of the Sonic. It's called Sonic Dash. So, and to the previous comment that whether, because we have standardized APIs, right? So the side Redis API, which we have standardized, whether or not, right? So, it is Sonic if it's some vendors are not convinced, it doesn't prevent to use the same APIs, right? So, and the Sonic management does 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 manage other devices as well, like US. Other things is abstraction layer to hide those those device specific commands. So I don't think that would be a concern to move to the Sonic management repo for this for the contribution that we have made here. But I do want to because I think if the Sonic community has to maintain two test framework, I think that will be a lot of burden for the Sonic communities.
I mean, the testbed will be different anyway. Just the environment will be the same.
Yeah, so all the process, how to run the test, right? So how to set up the test bed. I think we're looking for a unified framework to do that.
Yeah, like I said, the testbed configuration file, I'm actually inviting anyone to actually do a diff between the one I'm submitting and the one that already there in Sonic Management is the same. Cases wise, we are following the same model. It's the same team from our side that is contributing to both projects. So we have a lot of experience with Sonic Management as well, and we have pull requests in there as well. So I made it as close as possible. And like I said, once everybody in community decides and say, let's take this folder, move it there, we'll do it. In the meanwhile, in order to alleviate some of your concerns, I can make pull requests in Sonic Management with any changes that we may make.
Thank you.
No, but I think we those tasks that should should not be in this repo, right? So it should go to the Sonic Magic repo. This repo is most for the Dash architecture designs. I mean, in terms of code, right? So why do we want to have a kind of two branches of a code? Both having here and having there. You should maintain one branching because having a fork of another project, I think maintenance would be double the maintenance.
Yeah, I tend to agree
I
with Guan because the more time it is being kept separately, the more it will diverge, and someone will need to put an effort to keep them together. And I don't see a reason why, if the initial statement here is that we want to make it look and feel the same as Sonic testbed, Sonic management.
That was the end goal, but I think, Marian, in the meantime, there were stages to get to that goal, which, because not everyone's ready, which was why they were developing these interim stages in this repo.
No, but I think there's a stage I understand, but I think what I look at the steps, the environment, the way to build a Docker, I think it's very similar to the Sonic management repo, right? So therefore, why not unify the efforts in the beginning? I think the concern I have, if we do the fork and then later, because it's different repos, it will diverge, right? So we have to maintain two efforts here. We cannot leverage whatever the improvement we have in the Sonic management repo, right? So we need to unify the efforts here.
I'm just taking a note. Hang on a second. Right. And Gohan, I don't think I have any rights into the Sonic repo to create any kind of ability to manage that repo.
Oh, that we can give you, right? So you can help to, merge those things. But I think, that's administrative things. I think it's not difficult to solve. But in terms of because we're not just talking about design here, right? So we're talking about actually running code, those things, right? So we need to be unified, the community efforts here.
I have a note, and we can talk about it internally and bring it back. Keithite, do you need to finish up on the PR here?
No, I already presented. We're just
we're done.
Q&A basically sections. So
okay.
If there are no more questions, we're done.
Yes, sorry, if I can make an observation. Christine, I think we should discuss internally this matter and see how we want to, because there's a bad organization and other stuff.
Anyone else have a comment or question on the tests themselves?
Yeah, I'm sure this is Suresh.
Suresh.
So the hero test, as in the testing requirement document. So I believe the currently what you have is a basic best scenario, right? So, but the end goal is to get all the requirements for the hero test included in this.
Yeah. So the purpose of this PR, as I go through it, is basically to showcase the test bed, setting up the environment, and then it gives the best case scenario, because this is like the most basic case where it's like, if I have a vendor or a Dash API to configure the device, we can tie everything together with, let's say, one API, the most basic thing, but we can at least do it end to end. And like I said, the next pull request that we are intending to do will be the worst case scenario, aka basically the hero test. And from what I tried so far, to be honest, there will be multiple. The hero test will not be only one test. It will be a collection of data sets. It may be the same test logic, but different data sets, because as you scale, I don't know, number of IPs on one side, or different taxes, I'm not going to mention it, you will get different results on different hardware. So the worst case scenario for vendor A may not be the worst case scenario for vendor B, may not be the worst case scenario for something else.
Got it.
So this is our next step. Next immediate step is to contribute these worst case scenario cases that will basically build the hero test.
And you guys have ideas to make the hero test better, please feel free to, talk with Keysight, talk with me.
But I would really actually want to have a way in the community to configure the devices, because that will give me some confidence in the data sets I'm building, that I'm not writing now huge files that later may prove, hey, you missed this flag, or I don't know what I could miss, since I do not have the exact API in front of me. I know what I need to configure on the test side, but I don't know yet all the details and what to configure on the device side. And it may create a lot of work for me to create the hero test and then miss something and then have to redo it all over at scale. So it will be really good if now, while we have this, the most basic one, we can get that component for configuring also the device, so we can do that automatically. So I can actually officially in the community run it end to end.
Does that component have a specific name, or is everyone's different, or?
Whatever. I really don't care. For me, it's just a driver. I give it, configure what's happening
Just a
behind the
driver.
scene.
Okay.
It could use proprietary. It could use Siterev, Redis. Implementation, it's a different story, but at least to have something. Right?
Yeah, so it's basically a Python
I'm not
library
picky.
that has standard function calls that the vendor has to implement.
And I'm work together with the first person that offers to do this work, just so we can integrate and have it all working. I think it will.
Great. Any other questions? Testing questions from community?
Yeah, one question about this PR. So regardless of where it lands, can we go back and look at the configuration description? I didn't really get how the test case device config is described. So what's the format and schema and so on?
Yeah, so this is where I'm saying there is still work in progress and unknowns. So we have a data file that will describe, let's say, the ACL policy. I put it here, but there may be other flags that will need to be passed here. And once I get the API for configuring ACL policies, we will need to see what we need to have in here. Does it need to be a collection of them? So it needs to be a higher level that contains multiple policies. At this moment, it's just a list, but maybe it needs some attributes. So as I get the first thing and configure the device, I can better structure this part. And then we have the part which is the whole control plane and everything on the VXLAN, or we have the VMIP, the VMAC, and then this information go both on the tester side as well as on the device in order to allow the traffic to flow from one side. Of course, if there are loopback interfaces that are defined, if there is BGP which advertises this loopback interface so traffic flows, it will all be described in here. Like I said, this information right now, it's mostly proven and needed by the testing side. As soon as I get the first, let's say, official out there in the community thingy that configures also the device, I will be able to prove that the data set it's able to be sent to both device and tester, and it will satisfy both libraries' needs to configure the devices. So
just
this
to
one,
be clear,
I would say it's work in progress, to be honest. Right?
Just to be clear, this is static. Then there will be a subsequent phase in which during the test, we exercise the API to see that the behavior is correct. So we introduce a temporal dynamic. Because so, I don't think we can just test with a static configuration, assuming that the configuration doesn't change.
No, there is no assumption the configuration will not change. Even the test itself could do later changes to the configuration in order to test different functionalities. I mean, that's not excluded. But for the most basic test, a configuration is pushed into the tester, a configuration is pushed into the device. And at this moment, we do not have in the community a way to push a configuration to the device. And once we have that, the data set that it's in that file, I'll be able to actually show you guys a demo and be like, hey, look, if this data is being given to the library to configure the car and to the test will just work. At this moment, I can just
to make a
showcase.
concrete example, you're asking Pensando, give me your proprietary API. So I can push the configuration while in the meanwhile, you work in parallel to implement the SI API.
Yeah, I'm not asking necessarily for proprietary. I'm asking for whatever you have. If it's SI or proprietary,
whatever we have, for sure, is proprietary because SI doesn't exist today.
Yes, then proprietary. If you are willing to do that, I mean, I'm not.
Sure. No, just to understand what you're asking.
Yes. Because if it's out there, I can also put, everything on top and end to end and actually show it in the community working.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and one thing that's not said explicitly yet is try to define this structure so that you can have your own proprietary config library in your own development environment without necessarily sharing it. But we're not going to make progress towards common goal if we don't start like integrating this together.
Got it.
And ideally, in my opinion, as an engineer, will be to have two offers to contribute something, and then we can actually validate that all the assumptions and all the parameters are correct and is not only, proprietary, but it's actually moving to a common goal to standardize.
Any other questions?
So just to understand, this is basically performance-based. We are not trying with this test up to now to validate the P4 model. Correct?
We have done some preliminary, seeing what will work. Nothing publishable or Mircea, right?
I have nothing to say in the community.
Yeah. No.
I cannot answer.
You've got nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, performance tests would be first for sure. Did I hear John Charlie talking? Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Actually, I was the one.
Was it Honey?
I guess, I had a collision with Silvano. So, okay. So, yeah, this might be too early to perhaps, bring this one up, but I'll just basically say these things so that we can start, thinking about it as we move along. And that is to say that, okay, as we build these, test environment and test configuration and test beds and test setups and so forth, we should start thinking about how you're going to stage it in, let's say, some cloud-based environment, which essentially becomes, for us to really have, as people start to contribute things, right, how you really validate and so forth, so that we know that, okay, if test cases or new configurations or new data sets are coming in, we have a way to really, seamlessly integrate it and validate them in the back end. And if you can understand this part, is that, how do you really do this thing as part of like what CI/CD is built in the cloud environment? So are we really setting up all of those things with that thing in mind, or is it just too, it's just too rudimentary right now?
No, it's set in that direction. My background is system test team for our products and actually in automation. So for me, everything needs to be done automated and nobody touch it. And actually our regressions are made in such a way even internally. Builds are coming, they run, they publish results, you get emails it's zero touch ideology, at least for me. So I would say yes, all this we are having in mind. And actually, if there is interest and we can work on it, I can contribute a test bed and topology which can actually be run fully virtual. If you want to test, let's say you don't have the hardware, but you have an emulation of the hardware that we can test. When you say cloud, this one I'm saying maybe virtual, we can run that as well, not necessarily on hardware, but everything could be run virtually.
I think we will probably need both of them, right? Both virtual as well as the hardware.
Definitely.
Yeah,
the hardware is already there, 100 gig.
Yeah.
We can go at higher speeds as well, and also we can go and have it virtual, and that is all. How is the thought? It's already there, and if I get a partner to work with for the virtual one, I'm willing basically to start tomorrow to put something together.
I would think that there will be more interest for virtual initially, and then moving forward also, because it just allows us to really quickly do a turnaround and then be able to test it. Of course, there are hardware related tests you won't be able to do, but at least you can do probably 80 to 90% of test cases that you could run only in the virtual one and be able to really validate that indeed they are working, right? So.
Yeah, especially the model, the functional portion.
Right.
There is no, and if I go back, oh, sorry, this is a dash one. I believe here, test, docs, test bed. So this whole part, it already can run, and I'm actually running all this in a VM. I'm actually using double virtualization and so on, the nested virtualization. The tester part could also be virtualized. This I have no problem actually, this having a NIC here and all this being VM here and basically sending the traffic to also this before implementation being virtual and so on. So that can be on, like I said, as soon as I get a partner, let's say, to work with, we can put something together and maybe present to community as well. I have no problem adding here another, let's say, diagram for virtual. It's already there in our minds and design.
And Gerald's as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Anyone else? We've got 10 minutes left.
Yeah, hi, this is Amit. I had a specific question with the VNet to VNet test that you're committing today. So obviously, the appliance expects VXLAN encapped traffic, right? So in this topology and setup of yours, where is the VXLAN encap, decap being done? I assume it's not on the traffic generator.
So it's on both sides, you can say. So traffic generator, when it sends a packet, the packet exits on the wire with all source IP as the loopback, the VXLAN header. Then you have the inner IP and all the information that reaches the device. So the packet on the wire, it's a VXLAN packet with everything in it. So everything here, it ends up on the wire. Then the device takes it, looks into it.
So you're saying the traffic generator actually has the ability to pack the stateful traffic inside of a VXLAN packet.
Okay.
As it sends it out.
Stateless, it's packed with VXLAN. For stateful, and I can show here. I go back to the test bed and to the diagram. For stateful, as of today, we have to use these two devices. Sorry, I misclicked. We have to use these two devices that will basically add the VXLAN tagging. So as of today,
what is that device? And
in this case, it's a Cisco. I have multiple solutions that I can propose here. Today, it's a Cisco device. I tried with a Sonic device. Actually, it didn't work.
So you're saying it's a switch. It's a switch,
yeah,
basically.
It does. For example, in this case, does a VLAN to VXLAN translation. and that's a VXLAN encapsulation and everything. There are other ways to do it as well. But for today's purpose, I tried it, let's say, with a Cisco switch that does VXLAN, VLAN to VXLAN translation, and the traffic that
and do you
comes
think
this
would scale to, and this will scale to, millions of peerings and mappings and different kinds, different VLAN headers, because you might want to match and simulate millions of endpoints, right?
I don't think we need
and
millions
also,
of
how
lanes.
do you
It's
do
not the scale.
NVGRE and those sorts of things?
Sorry, somebody was saying something.
Sorry, is millions the scale of VXLAN tunnels we're talking about? I don't think that's the dash goal, is it?
The VPCs and so on, I think the requirement was up to 128, which is well within the possibilities and the scale. I don't think we are going to the full millions of VPCs and so on. So I think 128 was the scale for that. And yes, and that was totally achievable.
With realistically right now, 32 to 64 was a goal of 128.
And then I guess for a full virtual environment, there's a software encap, decap that can happen in the environment.
That is correct. So that's why
and so the test, the scripts you're committing, they will also configure these underlay devices to do this VLAN to VXLAN mapping and so on.
Yes, and that's part of the setup portion of the test, where is needed, it will send to these devices also the configuration to do it.
So just going back onto this virtual topology, just looking at your test hardware, if you were to do a fully virtual topology, how would you replace these, these components that you have described, like either Nexus switch or those things with a virtual component?
Yeah, so all this testbed portion, the orangey, yellowish, this is the black, gray part. I'm already running it today in a VM. All this, it's already a VM. That's not a problem. This part, we already have everything VM equivalent of the hardware, both stateless and stateful. So I have no problem putting a NIC here, moving all this as VMs inside a server, and having the traffic exiting through the NIC, or having the traffic inside to, I don't know, bridges, virtual switches, or whatever, reaching the virtual implementation or emulation of the device. And those, we have virtual solutions as well. Not necessarily from Keysight, but there are out there VM images that will achieve this goal.
Such as? Which are the ones are you talking about?
I saw like proprietary Juniper and Cisco VM switches, but I'm sure we can do it also with other images. I will have to try it. That's what I'm saying. I want a partner to work with, so we can actually give it a try. And as I go through it, probably, we're gonna find the gotchas and so on. Like even these devices here, I tried, I would say last week, to put here Sonic switches, to do this stuff. And I configure, I cable, I got to a point where I saw, no, it doesn't work. And a necessary bit of feature was missing. So I'm sure as we actually try to deploy it and run the case, we'll fix this problem. But I think everything can be fixed.
Okay. So currently the one